Wenham School Committee meeting scheduled to start at 6. We've scheduled the first interview to start at 6:30, so I would propose that we go into recess for 30 minutes.
I agree. Good
Right.
choice.
I will stop the recording and put up a screen stating that.
Wonderful. See you back in 30 minutes.
All right.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. We're ready to go. You want to?
Sure. All right, gonna call this March 24th meeting, excuse me, to order at 6:31 p.m.
Great.
So,
Okay. So this is being hosted on Zoom due to the current governor's orders not to have large meetings. We have made this open to the public. It's obvious that the public is participating. It's also being recorded and will eventually be shown on our local cable station. So just be aware that you are being recorded. We ask the public remain muted while the school committee is doing the interviews. And also later on, we will have Mr. Richards asking us questions because this is as important as it is for us to find the right candidate. It's also important for the candidate to find the right fit. At the end of this meeting, we will have a short recess to allow us time to review some information that came in today after the community visits. And then we will reconvene an open session and potentially vote. So, Mr. Richards, if all goes well, I'll be penning you as the person that's being recorded tonight, which means that the camera will pretty much be on you all the time. So just be aware of that. And we'll take turns in asking you questions so you get an opportunity to interact with each member. There may be a follow-up question, and of course, at the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask us anything you would like.
Great, thank you.
All right, so the first thing we were hoping you could do is to give us an opening statement. Tell us about your interest in Hamilton Wenham and any background you think is important.
Great, thank you. And thank you for having me. It's been a long day. I've talked to teachers, leadership team, community members. It's been a great day, actually. And I will say that I've learned a lot in the process, and it's reassured my application for superintendent at Hamilton Wenham. I started this journey probably about 2 years ago without applying. I waited for the right opportunities to apply and right communities, and Hamilton Wenham came up, and I decided to put my application in. I've been around for a while with large districts, small districts, medium-sized districts, and I know what works for me. And I know that the makeup of Hamilton Wenham is a great fit for me to be a creative leader, an innovative leader. After talking to the faculty, I'm even more excited. The leadership team seems like an extremely bright group of people to work with. And like I said, it's a great honor and opportunity to be here. Fits with my core values of embracing diversity for our faculty, staff, and students, and making sure that all kids receive a high quality education through the talent of your faculty and staff. And that was obvious today. So it's been a long day, started at 2:30, but it's been a productive day.
Yeah, we recognize that ourselves after doing 3-hour site visits, that you definitely needed a break. So we hope you were refreshed from that.
Absolutely.
The first question will come from the chair of the school committee, David Polito.
excuse me. Hi, Dan. Thanks for really putting in the effort today. I know it's been a long day, and I appreciate you meeting with us tonight. Excuse me. First off, I'd just like you to describe a program that you've developed, implemented, or worked on that created value for students while controlling rising costs.
Okay. A program that comes to mind is a tutoring program after school that I put together with students. I did this in my previous district, and what we did is we tapped into the National Honor Society. That's usually part of what their duties are. But I also gave teachers the option of changing out their duties to do tutoring after school. And surprisingly, a lot of teachers did volunteer to do that. So what we did in the process is we extended the school day for kids in need, and it was open till 4:30, and we did that at a zero cost. And the reason that we did that is because we allowed them to exchange the duties for it. Kids were tutored. We took care of kids that had school phobia, that couldn't get to school on time, and it basically just extended the day. And we allowed for one teacher who was a lead teacher to arrive late in order to put it at the other end of the day. So through creative thinking, we actually created something that was a brand new program, and it met the needs of kids who desperately needed something other than the structured school day.
Super. The next question comes from Stacy Metternich.
Hi, Dan. My name is Stacy Metternich, and I've been on the school committee now, probably the longest of the whole group here, with going on over 6 years. Anyways, can you tell me about any experience you may have planning and renovating or rebuilding a school and athletic fields or facilities? And how would you approach those critical issues that this might bring?
Great question. I've had quite a bit of experience that's rolled my way. Through MSBA, I've worked with them to create a statement of interest on the educational vision and profile of the school. What I did is I took that on with other central office staff to revamp the statement of interest so that it was much more appealing, so we were selected for a new school building. Advocated at MSBA for that, and once we were approved, I worked with architects. Now, I made it very clear to architects that if they're here to build a typical hallway, if you're here to build a typical classroom, this probably is not the project for you, because I'm looking for a lot of creativity and coming into the building, and that doesn't equate to cost. It's rethinking how we do things and design things for the building. And with that said, some of the applications fell off, and that's fine. And 3 of them stayed on, and we're excited about the opportunity to recreate, redesign thinking around how learning environments for students look. And some of it was garage doors that lifted up outside for art studios, teaching out on a mezzanine, and through that design, we were able to put together a building that really met the needs of 21st century learning, kids that have special needs, and also taking into account travel time from point A to point B. So I was in the planning stages of that. I've been through a full school renovation as a teacher, and I know how disruptive that can be. Teach and destroy at the same time. Plastic walls went up, and the dust was still flying. And so I lived through that as a teacher. So if you're looking at revamping and still teaching buildings, I know what that's like, and I can relate to that. And I know some of the safeguards. Also, asbestos removal was a big problem in my previous district. That's not so much a renovation, but construction is going on and safety protocols need to be in place. And I found a sharp learning curve in that. One project that I'm particularly proud of in my previous district is we had a library that just simply, it didn't function right. So I redesigned the library to be a common learning space. So what I did is I redesigned the library in different learning modalities. So as you move through the library, you had collaborative work, independent work, tables for group work, private rooms for students to work in. And I did that all at the cost of the summer maintenance crew and donations through the PTA. And so we recreated a learning common on a shoestring budget. And we had several schools come by to take a look at what does a learning common look like. And it wasn't too complicated to have student input on that. And it definitely met the needs of the students. A small cafe area was put together. That wasn't a big deal. We just tiled a certain area, put high tops, tapped into the community for donations for furniture. The community stepped up, and so I kept the cost low on that.
Great. The next question comes from Jean.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. So I've been on the school committee going into 4 years, but I'm ending my term in, well, whenever the elections occur. So my question is how would you ascertain the public perception of the school system? And reality and perception often differ. So how would you address misperceptions if, in your analysis, it doesn't match reality?
I agree with you 100%. So what I did in my previous district and in my current district is I pulled together a community survey. Well, it's a teacher survey, and then the students were given a survey, and the parents were given a survey. It's a culture survey. And the questions were all aligned so that they were appropriate for kids. Questions 1 through 10 were clear about relationships. Same thing with teachers, and the same thing with parents. Just worded a little differently for the audience. But questions, for example, 1 through 10 were all about relationships with adults in the building. And everyone took the survey at different times. And then I pulled together a team of 15 teachers, and we looked at the results. And what I asked them to do is, please do not draw any judgment. Do not be offended if it's about teachers. There are no names in here. And compare questions 1 through 10, 11 through 23. And they were grouped in a way which we were able to do a crosswalk perception from parents, faculty, students, and we compared them. And for example, if kids thought they had great relationships on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, and they scale of 4, and the teachers scored an 8, well, why is that gap there? And why do parents think it's a 2? So we engaged in conversations about that. Once we went through the data, we presented to the faculty. So before that, I prepped everyone on how to present it to the faculty so people wouldn't feel defensive. So we presented to the faculty, and we had discussions around perception, not about defense, being defensive, about perceptions. And perception is real. And so we talked about it, and we all came back together, and we shared out to the entire faculty. So my plan now is to do that next year, because every 2 years, because I want to give a year of growth. Then I want to compare the 2 years to see if we grew in any way. Did perception level out at some point? But it's real. And giving that survey was key to opening everyone's eyes to what people were thinking, rather than being defensive about it. And I did give everyone a heads up. It's, every 2 years we'll do it, and we'll compare, and we'll have productive conversations. And, I would do the same thing at Hamilton Wenham, because it's just not a Georgetown or any community issue. It's every community. Perception is the reality. Let's put it on the table, and let's talk about it and why that is.
Excellent. The next question comes from Michelle Horrigan. We have the great pleasure of having 2 Michelles on this school committee.
Great. Hi, Dan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Could you please recount a time where you needed help, had to ask for help, and how you feel that helped you grow as an educator and administrator?
Okay. Help to grow as an administrator. I recall actually being an assistant principal and wanting to go to the next level. And the advice I was getting wasn't really productive. It was kind of jaded. So what I did is I reached out to my job-alike group of principals, about 30 principals, and I asked them if they could recommend someone. And they did. So I reached out beyond my own circle, that my work environment. Help with a project. I had great ideas of a wonderful project I was going to roll out. It was fantastic and trending. Faculty's going to love me. I presented it, and it went flat. And I had no idea why it went flat. So the next faculty meeting, I just basically explain to them, this went flat and I need some help. And how can you guys help me? Is there a group of teachers that can help me pulling this forward? And it was about measuring student skills. And so a group of teachers helped me and explained to me why. It was too big. They needed it reeled in a little bit. They needed just a chunk of it, not all of it. And had I presented a long-term vision and then offer a chunk, it would have been received completely different. And I learned a lot through that experience.
Great,
Great.
thank you.
The next question comes from our school committee member, Ty Prieshma.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. I have a question with a couple parts. How do you develop a district school budget proposal? Whose input do you solicit? And what has been your history working with municipal officials like a town manager, board of selectmen, or finance committee?
It's varied in 2 different districts, and it based on the superintendent allowing me to be part of the process because I was a principal in both. I will say the one that I got the most out of is being part of the planning process for our budget as a group. And this is how I would do it in Hamilton Wenham, is I would bring my leadership team together first. And what I would do is I would ask everyone to start explaining to the group what their needs are. Because this isn't just the superintendent's budget, it's our budget. And then go around and explain, and then look at the resources and let them know that I need to make a decision with my finance director on what moves forward. And bring the team back together and explain to them that this is going to go forward. And the reason why I would do that is because it eliminates favoritism for levels. It gives everyone an understanding why something was selected over other things, because you can't forward everything. So it held my team together real solid through the process. And then from there, we brought that to the superintendent and then explained why. We did the storytelling piece, and then that moved on to school committee. So I was part of that process in developing a budget and with my team, and I would do the same thing. Town officials, more active in one town than over another. I had access to the Board of Selectmen, which would have conversations with me about what's going on. I'd make sure that my conversations were in line with the superintendent at the time. And they got a clearer understanding, and always communicated back to the superintendent the conversations that I had. I had his permission to have those conversations, and also with the town manager. It was very open. So it was a very open process in one community where I had access and they had access to me, and it was welcome to have those conversations. One of the reasons why it was welcome so much is that educators have a really hard time doing storytelling or explaining to the public, or maybe to the community that don't have students in the system. And so I was able to do that under my superintendent at the time. So I had much more access in one community than I do in another one. So those conversations were productive. We learned a lot, and we all went through the process together. And as it was presented, it was my time to speak to the needs of the high school at that time. I was allowed to speak.
Great.
The next question comes from School Committee Peter Walczyk.
Hi, Principal Richards. My name is Pete Walczyk. Thank you for applying to our district. I have a daughter in 3rd grade, and I was a teacher in our district for 4 years. My question for you, sir, is could you describe for us what the teaching and learning environment might look like in our district 5 or 10 years from now?
Great. Well, first of all, I got to gauge where you're at. You got to meet people where they're at rather than just put a goal and say, everyone go for it. So where are they at is the first thing I need to gauge. And then from there, I need to share a vision and the why. In order for her to move teachers along, they want to know the why are we doing this? Is this a new initiative It's only going to last 1 year because that's what we're used to in education. Is this the latest and greatest thing, a book written? And I would explain that it's not, and that the reasoning behind it, because that's their first go-to. And I was a teacher before, and I understand. It was something new every year, and it never truly stuck. And data shows that it takes 40 hours for professional development to really stick. So first of all, I would acknowledge where we are as a community. And some people are in the same place, but we're going to go to where you are and start moving forward to this thing or whatever it may be. So I would move everyone along and provide the supports into development along the way. If you don't invest in professional development with something new and get the teachers ready and comfortable and an opportunity to experiment, try, risk-taking without consequences before the rollout, now you're in good shape, because those people are going to carry my vision or our vision as a leadership team. And if they aren't prepared, then it's simply going to flop. So the vision down the road, where we're going, a flexible timeline is based on where they're at and how they're moving. And if I think it needs to be moved up a little bit, I'll explain the why to them. I think explaining the why along the process is crucial for any initiative that you're going to do. And that's how I'd go about it. As far as where its education is in 5 years, I wouldn't dream that we're all home right now doing Zoom, teaching classes. So, but certainly I do envision teachers as facilitators, innovative teachers, risk-taking in the classroom. I have to build trust before I explain what risk-taking is to them, to my leadership team. I want the classes to be active, loud, in a sense of learning, students engaged, students using different innovative techniques, and that it's every classroom is a lab. So that's the vision I have, but my leadership team needs to work with me on a vision on where we need to go, because we're there to support each other.
Great, thank you, sir.
Super. So the next question actually comes from me. My name is Michelle Bailey. I've been on the school committee for like 4.5, 5 years. But I was very involved in an organization called Support Our Schools at a time when we had several overrides in a row here. And I also happened to be a teacher in another district. How do you manage dissent and alternative opinions as a senior leader in the school district? And can you give an example of when you have changed your mind on something?
Absolutely. I enter into my leadership meetings with a thought and an idea, and pretty much based on my experience, I know where it's going to go. After listening to my leadership team and how things need to progress, I modify and I adjust according to their advice. If I feel as if it's not the right advice, I'll take it to another group, such as teachers, and then see where it goes from there. There's been a few times where I get all too excited, and then I bring it to my leadership team, and they bring it back to a reality. And it's like, that's great, but we first need to do X, Y, and Z. So they have shifted my thinking, and that's what the leadership team is for. And I need to build trust with them so they can disagree with me, and that they feel comfortable disagreeing with me without judgment. And that's where most of my work needs to be if I'm becoming superintendent, to create that environment where those who don't lean in will lean into the conversation, and those who lean in too much need to lean back a little bit. So I make that part of my norms. So great ideas, bring it to my team, it gets modified. And you know what? That's perfectly fine with me, because I know we're going to nail it one way or the other together.
The next question goes back to Ty.
Now you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. What role do you see a superintendent playing in developing district culture? And what would your ideal culture be?
Okay. Basically, it comes from leadership on down. If I'm not supporting teachers, if my body language, if I'm not in the classroom, if I'm not living what I'm talking about, walking the walk, then they're not going to trust me. Simple as that. It's got to come from the top, and it's got to be led by example to the highest level. So basically, I'm leading that, and I'm leading it with my leadership team as well, and being and exemplifying that on the sidelines of a soccer field, telling my story in the gym, on the bleachers. So I've got to live it, basically. I could have the best ideas, but if I'm not passionate about it, I can't expect others to be passionate about it. And I have to share that with them.
Great.
There was two parts to Ty's question. I think you only answered the first part. The second part was, what would your ideal culture be?
My ideal culture? Sure. Ideal culture would be one where everyone who enters the door, students, faculty, staff, feel safe. Feel safe to be who they are, fairly represented, and that they have a voice. So everyone has a voice, and the voice is heard. On top of that, I love collaborating. I would like people to collaborate with each other as much as possible. Bringing them together. I don't know what schedules look like, but creating schedules where departments and cross departments can collaborate. Risk-taking, without a doubt. Taking a risk in a class, trying a lesson that you haven't tried before, and not worry about it being an evaluation. Having fun with it, but knowing that if I don't succeed, I will be better the second time I do it. And trust needs to be built in order for that to happen. But that would be my ideal culture. My ideal district is teachers from surrounding districts are fighting to get into my district to teach, because the culture is so good, so healthy. The superintendent, the principals, and leadership team is so supportive in removing the obstacles for everyone so they can teach, that they're fighting and lining up for positions. And the same thing with administrators as well. That would be my ideal culture.
Great, thank you. Gene will have the next question, and also he's asked to ask a question at the end, and I just want him to know that I've got that message. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so this question relates to decision making. So what role do you believe the staff should play in decision making for the district? And from your experience, what is the most effective way to involve your staff in the decision making process?
Well, first of all, I want them to know that they can speak their mind, no consequences, that they can be creative in what they're proposing. So I want people to feel comfortable with speaking their minds. So I would reach out to teachers, staff members, and get their input on that and collaborate with them. There are some decisions I have to make, and I would make that clear that ultimately the decision lies with me as a superintendent, but I want your input before I make that decision. So I would make the decision, the end result, clear to everyone. And sometimes it's not my decision. And I would make that clear from the beginning, and that this is a group decision, and we're going to go forward with what everyone thinks we should, the majority. So I would let them know what's going to happen in the long run. I like getting together with teachers on focus groups to hear their input, their voice. Students, my leadership team, I want them to feel comfortable to share their voice. And whenever I can provide pizza to sit with the superintendent and just have lunch and just talk about the likes and dislikes about the district, that's always a winner, especially with kids when there's food. I would want to involve them wherever I can in the process, because ultimately the decisions that are going to be made are going to impact them. And my job is to safeguard that classroom environment the best way I possibly can and remove all the obstacles. So by collaborating with them and listening to them, letting them know they have a voice that matters, I think that's where I can be the best superintendent. The worst superintendent I could be is remain in my office and just make decisions and hand them out in email. It's not the type of superintendency I'm seeking.
Next question is actually from me. Can you describe a time that you've led a team that was reluctant to be led? How did you help them overcome their reluctance? What were the results, and what could you have done differently?
Okay, so the team that comes to mind is when social emotional learning first came on board. And I had a team of, well, I didn't have a team in the beginning because they were reluctant about social emotional learning and they didn't know much about it. So what I did is a presentation overview of what social emotional learning is, and that I need a team to implement this throughout the district, or I should say throughout the school. District group is different. So after I described what it was, I tapped into my key teachers to be part of the team. So we formed the social emotional squad is what we called ourselves, because we were more of a football team because we were out there tackling big issues, because people felt social emotional learning was just fluff and it was nice. And, you know, when are we going to get to the content of the curriculum? So I needed to work with them for about 6 months on just what social emotional learning was. So I sent them out on professional development. We came back, we shared. I shared what I learned because I was out on separate professional development, and I went with them on some occasions. And we spent the time learning, building their confidence. And at some point, once they clearly understood what social emotional learning was, they got very excited. And that's the tipping point. Once they were excited, I kept the momentum going, the sharing, and their confidence started building and their passion started building. And so with that, we decided to do a full day professional development with the faculty where we would lead workshops and they would rotate through. So I went from no one signing up to tapping into my key players and my allies in the faculty, to slowly taking it down a road, learning, to actually doing a full day professional development. What I would do differently with that, I would have introduced people that were outside of my circle that I could rely on. I think that was a missed opportunity on my part to introduce new folks into this circle of social emotional learning and build another leader within the building. So I think I missed that opportunity to invite just random folks into it. And if I had to do it again, I certainly would invite a variety into that circle.
Great. The next question is very long in words, so please get ready to listen. And it comes from David Polito.
So, hey, it's long in words, but it's sort of makes sense, gives a little bit of background. Hamilton Wenham is a very competitive academic district. This leads to increased social and emotional needs of our students in particular. Excuse me, kind of a unique need to our district, or at least I'd like to see it that way. I'd like to hear your thoughts on policies and procedures that could alleviate some of the stressors that are burdening these students while continuing to have, these high academic standards throughout our district.
Okay. A couple of things I've done here is I pulled together a faculty and student group. I didn't pull together, I asked them to volunteer. Who would like to talk about open campus during exams? And they were thrilled. I had all kinds of teachers volunteering to be part of a discussion group and students. And when they all came into the classroom, they all picked a side because they thought it was going to be contentious. I led them through a discussion, and I was the facilitator. I kept the question on the board. And we went around, and first I defined what it would mean. And we went around and we heard everyone's point of view, and we took the time slowly to listen to everyone. And to everyone's surprise, almost everyone was on the same page. So back to your perception question, I really thought I would be in the middle of a ring with teachers fighting kids, but they would share their concerns and the kids would address it, and the kids would address their concerns and the teachers would address it. It was a great discussion, and I planned for 3 meetings. We were able to come to a conclusion of a recommendation to the faculty after 1 meeting. So what we did is we implemented open campus between exams, and students were allowed to leave campus, go to the library, meet up with a teacher in between mid-year exams and final exams. So that's one huge success story. And it took me by surprise how fast everyone was on board. Back to perceptions, there's the superintendent's perception as well. I really thought I was going to have to separate people in this meeting, but they were pretty much on the same page. So that's a policy that we put together and it's part of our handbook. The next thing that's on my doorstep, since that was so successful, they want to talk about exemptions from final exams. And I'm going to do it the same way and bring teachers and kids together. And we're going to talk about what it means, what do you need to be exempt from a final exam if we go in this direction. And they're going to hear each other, and I'll be prepared for separating in 3 meetings, but who knows, if I'm lucky, it's going to be done in 1 meeting again. So there's another policy that's on the back burner right now.
We heard about the therapy dogs from the students, so.
What a great idea, and free to the district.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it was a lot of fun, and I had to get the adults away so the kids can.
So we have one more question from Stacy and one more question from Jean, and then we'll allow you time to ask us any questions, which may lead to follow-up questions. So Stacy, if you want to ask your question.
Sure. Dan, describe your leadership philosophy and how you would build leadership capacity at the school and district levels.
My philosophy, I don't know if I could just describe it in a few words. It's developed over the years through success and failures. But I would say my philosophy is basically one that's definitely has to be collaborative. I need a leadership team that trusts me, a leadership team that feels comfortable with disagreeing with me, a leadership team that is open to crazy ideas in order to foster what's needed for kids. Once I develop that trust with them, I'm hoping, and I will nurture this, that it will come forward in that fashion. That's where we can really be creative. And the same thing with teachers. It's going to take time to build that trust with everyone because, you know, if I am the next superintendent, I'm an unknown quantity. And people are going to want to know, what can you say, what can't you say, and can you trust? And that will be in the back of everyone's mind that I meet, and hopefully I can eliminate that. But I want one with a voice. It's I'm not here to bring just my ideas and, you know, and we move forward. I want this to be their school. I want the teachers to feel like it is their school. I want the principals to feel like it's their school and culture as well, but we're all on the same page, rowing in the same direction towards a vision. And I want to empower them to make decisions and not to be afraid to ask a question because many people think it's a sign of weakness. I want to eliminate all of that and partner with them in making these decisions. It's a tall order. It's going to take time to build that, but that's what I enjoy working in. So basically, it's voice, it's collaboration, decisions in isolation I'm not interested in. At times, I will need to make those decisions, and I will bounce them off at least one person, my assistant superintendent, or whoever it may be, in the moment if it's a crisis. But I want the feedback. I think that's the best way to succeed is when everyone has a voice, because then we all keep rowing in the same direction. When you force it on folks, leadership team, teachers, kids, you know, they're going to push back. That's been my experience.
Thank you.
All right, Jean.
Thanks. So Dan, most of your experience has been in the upper grades, the high school age. So as a superintendent of obviously a pre-K to 12 district, how can you describe how you would learn about the elementary school needs and how you would work with the building leaders and teachers and instructors?
Well, first recognize I have not been a principal at the elementary level. I can come out and say that. And that I need their guidance on what works best. Absolutely. So I'm not coming in with a specialist that I'm the specialist because I have done middle school and I have done high school. I would need them to get me up to speed. And again, to feel comfortable to disagree, because that doesn't work on the elementary level. So I would want to build that with my elementary principals right off the bat. Just call it what it is, folks. I need your support in order to be successful at your level. And simple, and not let them figure it out 6 months into it, because that's a lot of wasted time. And I think just being upfront with them and knowing that I need their support through this and their guidance, and I need you to disagree with me and to educate me along the process, I'm open to that. And just say it. And I said it today to the leadership team. This is what you're getting, and, you know, pretty straightforward. You know, you're not going to have to wonder what he's thinking or guess. There's too much energy in that, and they waste too much time and creativity. You know, let's just put it out there and go with it and see where it leads us. And I would also tap into my networking. Network with secondary level and with elementary level as well. The Massachusetts School Administrators Association combined the elementary level and the high school level a couple of years ago. And I've had the opportunity to work with elementary leaders for the past couple of years. So I also have a resource to go to bounce ideas off of. And I would use that.
Let me ask a follow-up question then. So how would you then assess and evaluate resource needs, resource allocation, prioritization, when you have, you know, elementary school needs that are very different than middle and high school?
Well, again, those resources around budget time, we would all be in the same room. And those elementary principals will explain to the secondary principal, the high school, the middle school, to me, to the leadership group, of their needs and what they mean. So not only am I getting educated, but everyone in that room is getting educated on why those needs are a priority. And that's how I'd run the budget every year as a group, so we have a clear understanding and can make the best decisions possible. And any questions that we have are in an open forum, and not make someone feel attacked if they don't understand. If the high school principal is asking the elementary principal many questions, I wouldn't want that elementary principal to feel defensive. It's for clarity's sake, because we need to move forward with the best decisions for the entire district. So I would make sure that everyone is in that learning process and that budget time, that season, and for resources and why they're going. And when decisions are made, I will share them with the team, and they will have a clear understanding of why those decisions were made, or an opportunity to ask, you know, but I really needed this. I heard your case, and we all heard your case, but based on the needs of all the students, this is the biggest bang for the buck that we're going to get, and the biggest need. So it's not in isolation, it would be as a team, and that opportunity for everyone to get educated on elementary would happen.
Thanks.
So that ends our formal questions, but like we had said at the beginning, it's just as important for us to pick someone that matches with us as it is for you to pick the district that matches with you. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to ask us questions.
Okay. I've learned a lot over the last few hours, but over the last few weeks as well. And I've heard from different stakeholders on what the needs are for the district. I would, or I should say the emergency needs or the front of the line needs. How's that? As a school committee, what would you share with me that the front of the line needs are for the district?
Well,
So
I'll start.
the budget. I did watch you on YouTube, the local cable. So I'm familiar with the budget presentation. I did watch that, and I know that's very challenging. So I'm well aware of that, and everyone brought up budget as a concern. But if you want to talk about that, that's great. But anything other than that, that you would say is at the front line for attention?
I think Michelle Horrigan should maybe talk about that.
Yeah, I would say the next pressing issue would be our out-of-district placement. It's risen drastically over the last couple of years, probably, and again, don't quote me, but probably the last 5 to 8 years. We are surrounded, as you know, by some great schools that can meet the needs of students with different learning styles. We did have some programs in place years ago, but that has been dismantled over the years. And with that, our students have gone elsewhere because we have not been able to meet the needs of their learning styles and disabilities. So that's huge for us right now.
Okay. And very costly too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll keep going. Our facilities.
Sure.
I'm on a roll now. I've been quiet a while. Our facilities, as you know, are aging.
Yes.
If you've taken a look around the district, it's a true testament to our teachers. They could teach in a paper bag. They're that great. But between our athletic facilities, you guys at Georgetown have beautiful facilities. Kudos to your community members. And you seeing, we heard from your students that you are out on the fields during their tryouts and practices and games, which is great because you can utilize them. For us, our facilities, athletic facilities are subpar at best. Our buildings are aging and cannot meet the needs of the changing face of education too. So that's a huge issue for us too. I'm going to stop there. I've said enough. Someone else can pick up the ball and run now.
I do have a question. I did see a plan for renovations to certain schools. I don't know if that's an active or a static plan, or you can help me with that.
We submitted it as, go ahead, David.
There's a few things actually up in the air. The most what Michelle Bailey was just going to mention is that we are in the process of submitting our third SOI, or Statement of Interest, to the MSBA. This time actually addressing all 3 elementary schools. Again, this is the 3rd year. Our first year, we only had Cutler as our primary school. I'm sorry, it just got loud in my background. And you know, we had a visit from the MSBA, and then each year we sort of added more and more to it. We also had some plans that are sort of on hold, that are up in the air, that we had architects come in and actually redesign libraries in all of our schools. You know, that was part of a process that was in motion when I came on board about 4.5 years ago, however long it's been, and you know, was sort of finalized. But as part of that process, it sort of gotten put on hold because it makes no sense building new libraries in schools that you hope to replace. You know, and then on the other, you know, the third piece of that would be, you know, what is commonly referred to around town as the Gale Report, which is based around our athletic facilities, which we're also looking to revamp because in looking at them, we really think that one, it does not address a critical need in that since that report has come out, our tennis courts have now been completely, we have no tennis program in town. We have to rent things out of town to actually keep our program up and running. And we also feel that that the initial report might not be Title IX compliant. So those are sort of all the balls we're currently juggling within the district, and I'm probably even missing one, to be honest.
Yeah. Very interesting. This is like deja vu all over again. In my previous district, tennis courts, fields, leaky roofs. We don't want to touch it because if MSBA approves it, then it's wasted money. That's what my previous district did for years. And it took a matter of reformulating the statement of interest. And when we did that, we finally got attention.
I don't want to de-emphasize the challenges with the budget. Money, and again, I work in finance, so this is why I always go to this thing, even though I started off as an English teacher, frankly. But money doesn't solve every problem, but it really helps. And I think when you have a regional district like ours with limited financial resources, it really drives the challenge. It really makes it a real challenge to do anything extraordinary.
Yeah.
And that just limits you to everything. You do deferred maintenance because you can't afford it. You have to be much more creative and expend a lot more energy. You may not even achieve what you actually really want. Your vision will never be able to be fully accomplished and fully realized. So the budget challenges are pretty extraordinary in my mind, but it's not anything that the regional district can really affect, right? Because 89% of the revenue comes from residential taxes. So there is no commercial base.
Yeah.
So that puts in even more pressure, even on the town side services. So I don't want to de-emphasize the budget because in my mind, yes, the superintendent should be, the primary school leader, but the mechanics and the operational side of really managing a budget, managing resources, driving towards, resource allocation needs, understanding what those needs are, how to find those cost savings is really, really important, and not really a skill set that a lot of people have, frankly. Michelle talked about the, special ed. That's the biggest driver, in addition to, staff salaries and benefits, that's the biggest driver of what creates the problem for us. So, again, I don't want to just say like the budget every year is going to be a problem, because it is. But to really address the budget issues that we have, you need to find what really is driving those costs. And the special ed services, it's like, you got to pay money, you got to spend money to get money. You got to do that here. And that's a hard thing to convince the town voters to do, is to spend more money in order to realize savings that you might not see till 3-5 years from now.
Yeah.
So that's my view.
On what Jean said, and I think I see a picture of you and John Kerry in the background, but I'm not 100% sure if that's who that is. But we have a new town administrator in Wenham, and the town manager in Hamilton's been here about 1.5 years. And so then we've just had an interim superintendent. So we also don't have a team that's come and gelled yet because they're not all there. There hasn't been a long-standing tradition of working together because they're new. So I think that is probably going to be part of the challenge, is building not just your team within the school, but building your team within the community government.
Yeah. I agree 100%, because that's where we can create a vision together, and how do we chip away at that?
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, did you have another question? Because you still have plenty of time. We're not trying to rush you. I just want you to know that. So
No problem. No problem. I want to go back to the special ed question. Everyone has faced that. And the only thing that we could, I mentioned this before, I think, to some of you, is the only thing that we can control is what's internal. And are our programs, are your programs meeting the needs of students? And if not, they need to be redefined. They need to shift. And I did that last year here with a program that was meeting the needs of students and the incoming students. It would have been nice, but it wasn't appropriate for them. So we redesigned that into a different position. And I did that with the superintendent. And we're going to take a look again at what's coming in the building and what can stay and what needs to be morphed into something different. And people. Do you have the right people? I'm sure they're talented, but are they in the right positions? And I have one that, you know, it's being recorded in public, but that's, you know, he's going to be much more effective in a different special education program. His skill set is strong, but he's just not where he is. And we need to take a look at that in every district, because what is out of our control and what is in our control needs to be examined. So to bring those costs down, because they are just going to sink every district if you don't do that. Yeah, that and transportation. So
Right.
Yeah.
Did you have a second or third question, or?
so it sounds like, I just want to make sure I understand that the projects are kind of on hold at this point through the district.
Well, I would say we've been doing a lot of reports for over a decade, and we haven't moved anything to something that's executable. So that's really sort of where we're at, is moving from identifying our needs
Yeah.
to actually executing. And there's just been leadership changes and some directional changes, and we haven't been able to, and money, you know, money talks.
Yeah.
So we haven't been able to move that yet. So
Okay.
I would say though that there are some things that you know we don't have the opportunity to wait on, right? So the athletic fields is one in particular, right? Because they're not playable now, right?
Yeah.
So that has to be addressed immediately, which we're trying to do with this year's budget. We're going to put in a capital request to the towns to get their approval to finally address the athletic fields, the you know, and all the other kind of things we need to do for that for that aspect. So, but Michelle's right. I mean, there has been, you know, I haven't been on the school committee for that long, but it seems to me that there's a lot of plans and a little bit of trigger, you know, shyness to sort of pull the trigger, because it's a huge commitment. And obviously the longer you wait, the fewer options you have. And I think with the fields, we're at the point where we really don't have any other options, right? We have to either address it now or just accept the fact that we just, you know, our sports programs will just be really, well, I don't know where they're going to go, but I just don't see it going very well.
they'll all be indoor sports.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like not only the leadership with the school system, but with the town needs to has some momentum going as well. Yeah, and some long-term commitments to the district as well in order to see them through. This is a long-term problem that you're facing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But what comes first?
Yep. I have to say, being on the school committee for so long, I feel like we also have had, with going through having all these reports, we don't have a real clear vision and then the buy-in from the community. And so that's something that we're lacking, you know, with, you know, along with what everyone else has said of, you know, what we need. And right now, the fields are the most important, as we are off, you know, campus for almost every sport because our fields are not playable, which is a huge issue. So getting that buy-in, having some kind of vision, so then you can get the buy-in and figure out where we're going, instead of having all these different plans going from one thing to another. And I think that's been an issue, at least for the last 5 years. We've gone towards one thing and then to another thing, and we haven't built a real clear vision of where we see ourselves going.
We've definitely, okay.
That's the disadvantage of this format, is you weren't actually able to come here and see for yourself exactly what we're talking about with that. But, you know, if you had come, you would have seen that our school does not look like the ones in Georgetown.
Yeah, no, I've been on the fields,
Yeah.
but Yeah, I hear you. And what about the population growth in town? Are you seeing a flat line? Are you seeing an increase? Because that's just going to compound what you're talking about.
We don't have a lot of development happening. I shouldn't say that. We have 17 large homes going in that have some children in them, but not a lot. We have had some declining enrollment at our high school, but the last 2 years we've had larger than expected kindergarten classes, which has also been driving some of the issues with our budget, because that meant we had to add a teacher in order to keep our class sizes at 22 without an aide. So we're looking at, class sizes being an issue at the very, very young levels.
Okay. All right. It sounds like you're looking for a superintendent / town manager / it's a very unique position you're looking for.
Indeed.
Bring it together.
It is a very unique position in that, us as a school board and as a district, we are the largest municipal body in these two towns. And, as such, we have, I can't think of the number off the top of my head, but, great majority of the, tax burden is due to the needs of the schools in the district. I mean, we're a small town, so that's actually, pretty common, but, in that sense, yes, the superintendent in these towns is a key political figure. And, in some ways could be argued that they are the key political figure. So that is definitely a very, very unique thing here. And, as we've had these sort of financial, crises, right? We're getting into a point where, like, yeah, it might seem like we don't have a direction, because for the past 5 years, we've had to spend our money on putting out fires than actually investing into long-term planning. And it's been here the past 5 years I've been on the school board. Every year it's, let's move forward. Oh crap, when did this happen? And that's just how it's been. And, I think we're all ready to be moving forward, and we're trying to see this as the opportunity and the catalyst to move that forward. But it's not going to be easy, man. So.
Yeah, you need the leaders you need long-term leaders. You definitely need long-term leaders that's going to help see this through and create this vision. And it has got to be a collaboration between the town's superintendent in order to help create the vision together long-term.
And if I could add too, it's also about trust. You're talking trust within the district, but trust between the town manager in Hamilton and the town administrator in Wenham and the other stakeholders in the community. It's been a long-standing battle, I think, and it all boils down to money. But there definitely needs to be trust and an openness and a transparency for the good of our students.
Do you see the superintendent as that keystone of bringing this together?
Oh, absolutely. A politician, Kevin White, every, smooth and sincere and transparent, as I said earlier. All those skills and characteristics have to be embodied in the superintendent.
Yeah,
and also a true compassion and love of education and the students in our district.
Yeah.
Everyone's head nodded, by the way.
Well, because it's funny, because everybody wants sort of what we had and what we used to be.
Yeah.
But we also need to move forward, and it's and you hear both sides of it, and then you hear both sides of it from the same people. If you talk to anyone for 10 minutes, they're going to give you 3 different things they want out of this town. And that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, it's a lot of juggling, and it is definitely a very unique role. I think this particular position in these particular towns.
Yeah, and I think the role of being a regional superintendent is a different role than being the superintendent of a municipal district, because here you're the head of a governmental body, of its own entity, and so you have more responsibility and more power in some ways. However, your power is more tempered because you need a partnership in order to make things happen. Whereas in a municipal district, it's you and the one person above. Here, it's you and all of the other heads in the dragon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely a more political job than a municipal superintendent, in my opinion, having never been either one.
No, I actually anticipated that. Usually with regional schools, that's,
Yeah.
it's typical. Yeah,
Yep.
I anticipated that.
So did you have another question, or did you want to give a closing statement now? What makes you feel most comfortable?
What makes me feel most comfortable is what I'm looking for. And maybe this is where you can figure out whether marriage is a good one or not.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for an office position where I just send out emails to folks. And I've worked for superintendents who just barked out orders, and we all jumped. And I'm not looking for that. I was on the other end of that, and I'm not looking to do that to folks. I need a solid, committed team, and I've got to build that within the school system, a solid, committed team, and they need to trust me, and I need to trust them, and that's going to take time. There's no doubt about it, and that's the team I want to work on. The same thing on the community side. That's a lot of FaceTime, and I'm fine with the FaceTime. That I actually enjoy being out. Again, get away from that office. I enjoy being out and doing that FaceTime, and it sounds like there's going to be an ugly face where we talk about dislikes. And if I can reassure people that, this is part of my training in conflict negotiations, is it's going to get ugly as we get better. And what does better look like? And storytelling. And I can't be the only one, but I have to be the main storyteller, obviously based on what you've told me, and tell it well. And it's a roadshow. It sounds like it'd have to be a roadshow to share that. And that will take time to develop too, because first of all, who is the new guy? Oh, you're the superintendent? So that will take time. But I want to be creative. I want to work for a passionate group of teachers. I want to work for a passionate group of leaders. You have the teachers. I keep hearing this over and over from my own teachers that visit. And heck, if I got passionate people to work off of as my foundation, we can move. If I don't, then it's going to take a while. But you guys already have that, so that's desirable for me. This is going to take time, absolutely, to get everything generated and going. But it actually sounds exhausting, but fun, to be honest with you. I enjoyed building a new school, and it was exhausting and fun, and I left, and they're building it, and it was great. We created a vision together, and it was fun. I enjoy it. Simply, I just enjoy the creativity part of it. It sounds as if your district is very hungry for a vision and very hungry for a leader to take them there, which is attractive to me. There are other districts that are probably easier, like you said, that is, one municipal government and that's it. So this is going to challenge me without a doubt, but I'm excited about it. I get to be creative. I'm open to ideas. I want to create voices to help me through this process. It can't be just, the superintendent's brainchild. It won't work. It just won't work. So I think with that collaboration and the opportunity to be creative, I'm still excited, and I appreciate you being very candid about where you're at. Yeah.
All right. Did you want to give us a closing statement?
I thought that was one.
It sounded like one, but I just wanted to be sure that if it wasn't and you had something prepared. David, did you want to say something?
No. I was just gonna say to that, I think it wouldn't be fair of us to not be
No
as
problem.
honest to you as we could be
Yep.
about sort of what we see is I have a lot of pride in this district, and I know we can be even greater, and I know everybody within the district wants to be even greater and is using this as a catalyst for even bigger and better things. But it's going to be hard work, and it wouldn't be fair for us to not just let everybody know that it is going to be a big ask of whoever ends up becoming the next superintendent here. So really appreciate your candor in your answers to all your questions tonight.
David, may I add something?
Sure, Peter.
I'm a triple stakeholder. I'm a taxpayer. I have a daughter in the school system, and I was a teacher in the middle school and the high school for 4 years, where I was blessed to have that opportunity. I desperately want to get back to the district, but I can tell you that the teachers are absolutely passionate about this, and they're excited, and a vision is what we need, a long-term vision of where we're going for our students. But the teachers are passionate and committed and outstanding.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but optimism for what's going to happen in the future.
Super.
So,
Go ahead, Ty.
so I was just hearing you, describe how telling stories and meeting people is a real way to connect. And I was asking people, I guess, what is it about you and the way you tell the story that makes people want to follow?
Well, I try to get my facts straight before I put myself out there, and I try to be as authentic as I can in storytelling. And if you were to tap into the other interviews today, I pretty much put it out there. I got strengths and I have weaknesses, and I need a team to help me with the weaknesses. And storytelling is got to resonate with people. They need to know how it impacts kids. It's not just I need this extra teacher, is if I don't get the teacher, this is what will happen. And I'm not doing a scare tactic, but I do want you to understand why it is what we need. And going out there, just being authentic and being upfront. And I think that's what most people appreciate. When they get the political answer that goes round and around and around, they shut down. And I think that's what I've experienced with superintendents. And, I've been on the other end. I've been frustrated, and I've learned a lot from what I don't like from folks. So I'm, being as authentic as I can and answering directly as I possibly can with the knowledge that I have, I think resonates and makes a difference in the storytelling and making it real. And I said this in my last interview, hitting the hearts of people is key. It is absolutely key that you must hit the hearts of people for them to react. It must be intrinsic. We've told stories of extrinsic, what will happen, but this we need to move them with. You're going to have to rally an entire community, a school committee, government officials, everyone on this movement that you want to see happen. And storytelling is, everyone's part. Is everyone's part. So what makes me unique is I think I just put it out there, and I don't do it recklessly. I think carefully before I put it out there, but that's what people want.
Mhm.
I think it makes a big difference.
Great.
All right. So the next step we're going to discuss, but I think we're going to go into recess, which would give us an opportunity to read the feedback we got from your community visits today and your
Great.
faculty visits and all of that. So you're welcome to stay on. We are going to then discuss the next steps of how we are going to choose the next superintendent. It's possible that that will happen tonight. It's also possible that it won't happen tonight. So I'm not hedging my bets on that right now. So David, do you want to take over so we can decide about the recess?
Sure. At this point, are we thinking, I sort of eyed through things a little bit. 15, you think 15 minutes would be fine? We can recess till 8 o'clock. What are you guys all thinking? Did you get a chance to look at it? Well, 50 pages, but obviously it's not substantial. Does that sound good to everybody or?
15 minutes works for me.
So, all right. So why don't we recess until 8 o'clock?
Okay. I will put up a screen that says we'll be back at 8, and then, so I'm going to pause the recording because there's no reason to record 15 minutes.
Can we just thank Dan?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Coming
I
back.
actually thought Dan had already left because it was all your faces popped up. So, Dan, thank you very much for your time. I know it's a long day. Go have their
Breathe.
beverage of choice, breathe, right? Loosen the tie. It's
Yep,
well
yep.
served. Thank you for all your time and your interest in our district. So,
Great. Well, thank you for selecting me to be a finalist. I've learned an awful lot through this process, and it sounds exciting. It really
Thank you.
is huge, but exciting. So good luck in the recess decision, and I'll wait to hear from you.
Thank you.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you, Principal Richards.
for your time.
Have a good night.
Right, the recording has started.